President, thank you so much for your time. It's such an honor talking to you. Let us start with this visit of yours to Moscow, to Russia. From what I know, this is your first visit to our country. Can you please give us some details on the issues discussed, maybe some agreements reached?
It's part of a long journey, I say. We're building partnership based on our past experience. We may have failed, we may have not succeeded in the past, but we find it right now to reinvigorate our partnership. We're learning a lot. We have learned a lot. What most important is the future. How can we move forward by building partnership, bilateral, multilateral? Definitely the role of the Russian Federation will be very important for the coming few years. And for that matter, we see the consultation underway, the meetings, the exchange of ideas, the exploration that we are jointly doing is going to be very important this time.
How would you assess bilateral relations between our countries? Maybe in which spheres is it developing most rapidly?
It's an integrated approach as a matter of principle. We don't have one particular sector or industry. We start with infrastructure, for example. Infrastructure will include roads, railways, ropeways, ports, airports. That's critical, and that definitely will have its impact on other sectoral programs. We have energy, we have water management issues, we have mining, we have the fishing industry, we have agriculture, we have transportation and communications, and social services, health and education. It's an integrated approach. We're discussing details of concrete programs on all these sectors I mentioned, and then bring them together to one complete whole in an integrated manner, identifying areas of priority, and then you have a line of priorities on all these sectors and industries, and have a schedule and a time frame, which definitely takes stock of resource mobilization is another important thing. We have to jointly mobilize resources, material, equipment, machinery, but above anything else, human resource would be very critical. So it's an inclusive and comprehensive arrangement that we are undergoing. And the fact that already we had 3 consultation sessions. Last meeting with the President was one of the most fruitful meetings and discussions we had. It's not a matter of PR. We are talking seriously about this project and taking it in a context. What is the global context? Where are we now? Where are we facing challenge globally? What about regional and continental issues? How do we relate our bilateral programs and integrate them into this global and regional setting? It's quite interesting, and I say it may take time to explain what exactly is going on, but hopefully future meetings and future discussions will enable us to detail plans on the projects that are on the table.
Eritrea, your country, was one of those that did not support the UN decision to blame Russia for its position on Ukraine. How would you explain your position, the position of your country?
I say this is a problem of Russia. Russia should have gone a long time ago, because the war was declared at the end of the Cold War. This war on Russia was declared at the end of the Cold War. Why? It's hegemonistic on the part of NATO, led by Washington. They came up with an idea of containing Russia. Containing Russia means not allowing Russia to progress in technology, agriculture, industry, a number of areas. The containment strategy designed about 30 years ago was a disaster. It was a declaration of war against Russia. Today people talk about the Ukraine, Russia. It's not Ukraine, Russia at all. It's NATO led by Washington that declared war against Russia 30 years ago because they felt Russia was their competitor. Russia was their challenge. So they have to contain Russia, weaken Russia, sabotage Russia's development in every area, very important area. So we say now we will not accept that any reason, any declaration of war again, or even condemnation of Russian action here and there. Russia has the right to defend itself. Russia is not defending itself for Russia's sake at all. Russia is defending itself against a hegemonistic strategy or ideology. This hegemonistic ideology is not exclusive for Russia. The same containment strategy and policy is declared against China, Taiwan, the Taiwan Strait, this and that, Hong Kong, and a number of areas. Even small nations like Eritrea are sanctioned because they are not bowing to this hegemonistic ideology. So where are we now? We are in a situation where one group of hegemonistic forces, NATO led by Washington, has declared war against humanity. And humanity has the right to defend itself. Above anything else, Russia has the right to defend itself. And when people came up with this idea, we are not at all with the idea. We're not supporting hegemony. We are not supporting containment. We are not with those who are trying to create a unipolar world. We have not been there for the last 30 years. So what's new now? What's new now? And what's new now for us is we don't accept any hegemonistic strategy or declaration that condemns Russia or any other party that does not get along with this idea. So it's very clear now, and we're saying Russia should have taken the appropriate steps early on. Russia would have been able to educate the world and also mobilize support to take this situation into a better relationship amongst nations, peoples, respect of rule of law, stop interference, stop demonizing, stop sabotaging, stop containing. That's very simple. And we say we are not supporting or not supporting. It's not a matter of not supporting a decision or even abstaining or not abstaining. This is a fight. This is a global challenge. And everybody, every world, every nation, every people will have to come in solidarity to fight this dominating ideology and go forward to a new world order. The new world order can only come as a result of global solidarity. It's very simple. For us, it's a matter of solidarity for an idea, for a cause, which will have to be supported by everybody else.
You really talked a lot about this new emerging world order during your visit to Moscow. And obviously the West, it's the fight of the West against this new emerging world order. What is this new emerging world order for you, and which role will Russia and Africa as well play in this new emerging world order?
We need to get out of this, I call it the law of the jungle. This is the law of the jungle. And no one is happy with this state of affairs. This attempt of unipolarization, using every weapon to intimidate, to sabotage, and even contain everybody is not acceptable by anyone, by any standard. So our new order will have to be based on the respect of rule of law, the respect of sovereignty, non-interference, cooperation, complementarity, and then making it safer for humanity to progress. This ideology will have to be fought. It has to become history, and that can only be done by a solidarity amongst peoples, and what Russia can do and what other nations can do, what China can do, and in solidarity with all those who've been marginalized, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, will have to come together and not only face this challenge, but work together to create a new environment different to what we see now. Unipolar, domination, containment, sabotage, sanctions. We need to get out of this cycle. This cycle is not at all acceptable by humanity.
And now a lot of experts in business circles as well are discussing the so-called de-dollarization, getting rid of dollar in bilateral trade. So first of all, what, as for you, is the reason behind this process, and can our two countries, Russia and Eritrea, also move to national currencies in bilateral trade?
This is a very natural partnership. It's a natural partnership based on shared values, based on shared ideas and strategies for the future. This kind of relationship is exemplary. It's a model. Probably next time we'll have a broader scope. We say our bilateral relationship is critical, but we have to look at it from a broader scope. The regional context is very important. The continental concept is very important. The global setting is, again, very important. So our bilateral partnership has its dimensions: regional, continental, global. And definitely the collapse of this hegemonistic unipolar world order is behind us. At least now we are in the transition. This is a transition phase. This phase will have to be overcome, and we'll have to prepare the ground for the future relationships of nations. And Russian Federation working with Eritrea, Russian Federation working with Africa, with a number of other regions in the world, is a very natural need for humanity. Humanity will have to get out of this cycle and move forward to creating a new environment, a new world order.
Do you think that Africa will play a bigger, more important role in this new world order?
Africa is the most marginalized continent, and Africa has more of interest than anybody else. Africa should be more interested, and Africa is more interested now because of the failures and because of the marginalization, its exploitation, looting, destroying communities, creating crisis here and crisis there, and making Africa a recipient of aid when 60% of global endowments are in the continent. Why should Africa remain marginalized? And Africa has more interest than anybody else to join in this solidarity for creating a new world order.
Does the absence of colonial ambitions from the side of Russia have an impact on relations with Eritrea and with other African states?
The ideology is nothing new. Slavery was there. These guys were behind slavery. Okay? They migrated to the Americas. They exterminated the indigenous people. After exterminating the indigenous people, they came up with slaves from Africa. And their cotton plantation and their economy will have to be sustained by slavery. From slavery to colonialism, from colonialism to unipolar system. It's not a new ideology. Humanity has suffered a lot from this ideology. And this is the 21st century. We are not living in the Middle Age. We have to find a way of living in a modern world. It's very simple. But the culture, this culture of unipolar or the colonial, neo-colonial slavery is one ideology. We have to get out of this cycle and create a new environment.
But isn't your country and you scared of more sanctions, of toughening sanctions from the side of Western states and the United States because of this position towards Russia?
What sanctions? 2009, sanction was imposed on Eritrea until 2018. 9 years of sanctions and repression, sabotage. Why? Because we were supporting terrorist organizations. Can anyone imagine Eritrea supporting terrorism in Somalia or elsewhere? From day one, even before independence, we had to fight this ideology. We're not in that camp, but definitely Washington was there to fabricate lies and then impose sanctions on Eritrea. Now, this has become phenomenal. We've been able to learn a lot. We've been educated by these unilateral, unlawful sanctions. 9 years of sanctions, damage to the economy, damage to our infrastructure, damage to our environment. We have been able to sustain this, and in spite of the damage done, we have learned our lesson, and now we are more enthusiastic to join hands with many in the world so that we can get rid of these sanctions and cycle of sanctions. It's for us in Eritrea, we have learned it the hard way. We have learned it the hard way because they are in position of illegal unilateral sanctions. It's not easy. Eritrea is a very small nation. Eritrea is not is not even in a situation where it can challenge these big powers. Why? You have to bow. If you don't bow, you will be crushed. That's the logic. The same logic is the same ideology.
I was about to ask you actually about the conflict in Ethiopia, which was practically ignored by the West, but on the other hand, they blamed you for the violation of human rights. How would you explain such a position?
It's a fabrication. How do you manage Africa? How do you manage these marginalized parts of the world? You create conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia, conflict here and there, internal conflicts, tribal, clan, ethnic, all sorts of conflicts are there. These are tools for intervention, if you don't bow, you are an authoritarian, you are a dictatorship, you are all sorts of ugly things in their own eyes. This has become very monotonous. It's boring. And people have learned a lot. We say, enough is enough. We have to build our economies. We have to jointly work to change the reality and create synergy, complementarity, cooperation in the name of the game. Their rule, their tools are dividing, weakening, inciting problems, conflicts, all sorts of conflicts. Africa has been marginalized possibly because of internal problems, but external intervention has been one of the cause of aggravation for the marginalization. So I think Africa has learned a lot, and Africa has more interest than anyone else to join in any solidarity so that we get out of this cycle, border conflict, ethnic, clan, tribe, this and that, nations fighting each other, crisis, humanitarian, non-humanitarian. It's amazing. So I think Africa has learned its lesson. Africa has gone through an experience, and more than any other continent, Africa would be interested to get out of this cycle. We have learned our lesson. All sorts of sanctions, all sorts of interferences have created this reality. In spite of the damage, we say it's been a learning experience for us to know exactly where our challenge comes from and how we can face this challenge.
But on the other hand, we see numerous US politicians, American politicians, paying visits to African countries. What aim are they pursuing with those visits? What are they trying to achieve? And what is the reason behind this increase in the US interest in Africa nowadays?
It is a very simple thing. They have failed. Their tactics, their machinations have failed. Now the pretext is, China is coming and invading the continent. Russia is coming and influencing. This guy is becoming there and there. So what? It's an 11th hour game because of their failures, because of the rejection of the peoples of the continent. Now they see their times are changing. And everybody's running. They're running here and there, trying to mislead people. But enough is enough now. I don't think they have any reason. They have no one to believe. Whether China is coming, invading, China is controlling, China is expanding, China is doing that, Russia is coming. It's all sorts of things. These are fabrications and lies. And I think it's high time now that this idea of hegemonizing, unipolarizing has collapsed. They're panicking. They're desperate. Nothing new about their behavior. What we need to do is focus on where we are going and do our job in spite of their obstacles, in spite of their sabotage.
And simultaneously, we see these new integration processes. Like BRICS, for example, with a queue of states willing to join BRICS. You also have Pan-African integration, like continental African free trade zone.
All options are on the table. The one thing everybody wants is a new world order. A new world order based on fundamentals. Fundamentals are there, but how do you structure mechanisms? Global, regional, continental, depends. But it's a very dynamic process, whether it's BRICS or other forms, other forums. It's a dynamic thing. The ultimate goal is go for a new world order and have a mechanism for that world order. The mechanism can take shapes. It's a dynamic mechanism. You can have names for that, but ultimately the goal and objective is one and the same.
Let's get back, still we have some time, hopefully, to bilateral relations between our country, between Russia and Eritrea. You started describing some areas of cooperation, but from what I know, your country is also interested in Russian trucks. Why are Russian trucks popular in Eritrea?
Not only Russian trucks. The industrial base, the industry base and the technology base in Russia is advanced. We've been blaming the Russian Federation for not utilizing this potential to contribute to global economic transformation, and particularly to the transformation of economies in Africa. Manufacturing in the name of the game is not a matter of exporting raw materials. A lot of these technologies and the base here in the Russian Federation is more than enough. Russia could have been, a competitor in so many areas, not only machinery, equipment, or transfer of technologies. Now, the awareness is there. This is not a matter of buying trucks or buying equipment from Russia. Russia has a lot to contribute. Within this concept of going to a new world order, the programs on infrastructure, mining, water, energy, manufacturing will take advantage of the advancement of the technology in Russia. So it's not a matter of trucks. This is a very simple thing. So it's not significant at all. Our bilateral relationship should go beyond that. We need to build an infrastructure or an architecture for more of transformation from the existing backward or even subsistence economies to a more advanced state of the economies in Africa. And that will be done by taking advantage of existing advantage in the Russian Federation. So for us, buying trucks is not even significant at all. We need to have an infrastructure along the coast. We have 1,200 kilometers, we have more than 300 islands, we have our neighbors. We are in a very geostrategic location. It's an international waterway. We need to provide services. We need to guarantee that we make our contributions on the services that are required in this. The infrastructural programs that we are discussing, airports, ports, harbors, roads, railways, energy, is part of the infrastructure that will have to be put there so that we make our contributions. We have other partners in the region who can make better contributions than what Eritrea can afford. But jointly with the Russian Federation and other partners across the globe, we can make this region more vibrant. And facilities, infrastructure will provide the services required for the world that will have to go to a new world order.
And the last question, as we all know, in July, St. Petersburg will host the second summit, Russia-Africa. What are your expectations from this upcoming summit? And we see the efforts of Western states, of the United States, to jeopardize, so to say, to undermine this summit.
Don't bother about these obstacles that are planned by Washington or allies of Washington. As I indicated earlier, they are desperate, they are panicky. They want to sabotage, subvert any Russia-Africa cooperation. And Africans are getting more and more aware of the need for the solidarity with Russia, with China, with other partners globally. And I don't see any, reason. It's like a failed thing on the back. It's so desperate and panic is guiding their attitude. So the next summit here, for their reaction, I say it's very natural for them to act that way. But that's not going to block or even sabotage the next summit. The next major summit will be part of the dynamics. Another summit, the next summit, we will have a better situation, a better understanding. We will have better mechanisms to deal with all these issues in spite of obstacles that we can expect or challenges that may come from Washington or its allies. No problem.
So hope to see you in St. Petersburg and talk to you on the sidelines of the second Russia-Africa summit.
I will be there to see you next time I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.